when you're the president, you're up here and you have 100 brothers and you have 20 lay students, you look around and you say, what kind of activities can I get for them? What kinds of sports? You know, and you look out your window and you see the river. And when I was a student here, the regatta, the Poughkeepsie Regatta was run. And my brother had rowed for MIT. He didn't get down here to row. He had back problems. But there was certain, the young guy, there were California and Cornell, and there was one other school that lived down where the Marist Boathouses are. And they used to come up and watch us play softball and just sort of wonder, because they were here the whole month of June. And you know, so there was, and then we would watch the races. So that, you know, that's adventure. And then it ended. I think it ended my last year. It ended in 50 or 51. Pretty easy reason. Before World War II, it was essentially, let's just call it an Ivy League type of thing. The young men came from affluent families, and the trick to this was they used to row about a mile, and then they had to row 4 miles here. So they used to take the whole month of June to get the stamina to row the 4 miles. Well, after that, you wound up with GIs and a different breed, and they couldn't afford to take June off. They had to go out and work. So, you know, they moved it out of here. There were complaints, too. The complaints were that if you got a drawing closer to Highlands, the water was quieter. So you had an unfair advantage. But basically, the whole notion of taking, you know, when you look at who the colleges were, you had California and Washington from the West Coast. But then you had almost, you know, Columbia, Dartmouth, Navy, Cornell. You know, they were quality colleges, but the people just didn't have a month to practice rowing and do nothing else. So it sort of came to an end. About this level was the halfway mark. They would start up at Crum Elbow past that, you know, that, and if you get up there, if you're on the river, if you look down, you can see a 4 miles. So it went from there down underneath the railroad bridge, underneath the regular bridge, and ended below that. They did have a train, which I had not noticed. I don't know if it was still operating on the other side, that sold grandstand seats, and you could watch it. But generally, you watched the part that you saw. The section we saw was interesting because they would take a breather about halfway. Yeah, they wouldn't just stop, but they would definitely slow down, and some of them would even just rest on their oars for 20 or 30 seconds, then go back to it again. You know. So we were more intrigued with the guys getting the boats in the water, getting the boats out of the water. That was the romance of the thing. And so when I took a look, I said, the cheapest sport and the best sport to put Marist on the map was rowing. Because nobody heard of Marion or Marist College, but when it hit the paper, Marist had rowed against Amherst or Williams. That's good company, you know. Georgetown, you have, you know, you're known by your friends, and that was better than trying to go by basketball or any other sport. So that was our first sport, actually, and it worked out very well. Well, you say, why? Because the river, because it's there. It makes a lot of sense. It's been one of our better sports. It's not something that you got up every morning and thought about. It was there. You would see the trains cross. You could see sometimes the smoke coming out of the diesels. You could hear them a little bit, very quiet, but it wasn't enough to disturb you, not like the L's in New York City. You had to stop talking when they went by, but here it was just going across. They were lumbering across, back and forth. It was just like cars going on the street. You just assumed it'd go forever. I think it was owned by Penn Central when the fire occurred.
Yes.
So that, but what began happening, first of all, you got rumors that the bridge was structurally unsound. Stay away from it. I think that goes way back. The construction was held up for years by rivermen who claimed that the capsins, the caissons, were going to be a navigation hazard. So there was a lot. It became a legal mess when it was being built. There's a very good short essay by Arthur Adams, who was the president of the Lehigh, Erie, and Wallkill Railroad, and after '74, they were making sort of a play to get it. But I think it's an essay in a book called The Hudson River in History, and he wrote it about '83 and has a pretty good description of how it, not the mechanics of how it got built, but where it was going to at that time, and why the Penn Central and Conrail were not interested in building it. You could almost think maybe it was arson. It wasn't arson. It was sparks from a train. They don't know if it was from a defective brake or what. But by the time I got out, somebody said, "Hey, the bridge is on fire." And we went out and looked, and you could see the smoke on this side, and you could just see the edge of the train ending on the other side as it was leaving. So you knew how it got started. And then it was more interesting. Who's going to go up there to try to put it out? How do you get up there? How do you get equipment up there? I really didn't. I couldn't stay there for hours watching, but I could see that it was on fire, and it was scary.